The Adventure of the Three Students by Arthur Conan Doyle. It was in the year 95 that a combination of events, into which I need not enter, caused Mr. Sherlock Holmes and myself to spend some weeks in one of our great university towns, and it was during this time that the small but instructive adventure to which I am about to relate took place. It will be obvious that any details that would help the reader to exactly identify the college or the criminal must be suppressed, since scandals are apt to arise that might be injurious to certain individuals or to the university itself. Let it suffice that I will say that it was neither Oxford nor Cambridge. Our lodgings were close to a library where Holmes was deeply immersed in some of those abstruse researches that formed the solid basis of his lifelong work. We were returning one afternoon from a visit to the famous old university town when we met the young tutor, Mr. Hilton Soames, who had called upon us in the morning, and who had been so persistent in his request for the presence of my friend that I had promised in his absence to secure him an interview. As he met us, he wrung his hands in agitation. "A most serious and extraordinary business has occurred since I saw you last. Mr. Holmes, I beg of you to come back with me at once." "Very well," said Holmes. We turned and walked with him to his rooms. "You must understand," said he, "that tomorrow is the first day of the examination for the Fortescue Scholarship. I am one of the examiners. My subject is Greek, and it is my duty to examine the candidates in their knowledge of that language. The examination begins tomorrow at 9 o'clock. There are 3 candidates, and the scholarship is of great importance to them. I have the proof sheets of the examination paper in my desk. It is this proof that has been tampered with. Yesterday afternoon, about 3 o'clock, the papers were left on my desk. I was engaged at the time in correcting other proofs. I went out for an hour, leaving the door locked. When I returned, I found that someone had been in my absence. The key was still in my possession, but there were unmistakable signs that the proof sheets had been tampered with." Holmes sat down in his chair and rubbed his hands together. "Let us hear the evidence," said he. "I had left the key in my pocket," continued Soames, "and I am convinced that no one forced the door. The proof sheets were on my desk. The desk was locked. There was no sign of a forced lock, but a glance at the papers showed me that someone had been tampering with them. 3 of the papers were on the floor. The others had been crumpled as if someone had hastily turned them over. There was also a small scratch near the keyhole of my desk, as if a nail or some other small instrument had been inserted into it." Holmes sat for a few moments in deep thought. "This matter is very curious," said he. "Who are the 3 candidates?" "There are only 3. Gilchrist, a brilliant young athlete, Daulat Ross, a young Indian student of great ability, and Miles McLaren, a man of high ability but with a—" Holmes made notes of their names. "Who else had access to the room?" "Only Bannister, my servant, who is a trustworthy man and has been with me for 10 years. "Tell me about Bannister," said Holmes. "He is a good servant, and I have every confidence in him. He was out at the time of the incident, having gone to his room, which is on the same floor. Has he shown any sign of suspicion?" "He was greatly upset when I told him what had happened." Holmes rose. "Let us visit the room," said he. We went to the tutor's study. Holmes examined the door and found no sign of forced entry. He then turned to the desk and looked at the scratch near the keyhole. "This is very suggestive," said he. "A nail or some other sharp object was used here. Now let us examine the room." He looked at the floor with a lens. Suddenly he stooped and picked up a small, soft mass of something. "What do you make of this?" he asked. I took it. It was a small pellet of black clay. "I see nothing remarkable." "That is where we differ," said Holmes. "This is very remarkable. It is very rare in this district." He then looked at the fireplace and examined the rug. "Aha!" he said. "What do you think of this?" He pointed to a footprint on the rug. It was a long, narrow foot with a very pointed toe. "This footprint is not Bannister's," said Holmes. "No," said Soames. "Bannister has thick-soled shoes." "Then it must be one of the 3 students." He picked up another pellet of black clay. "This is an important clue," said he. Holmes then turned to Bannister, who had entered the room. "You were in this room after the theft?" "Yes, sir. I was so upset that I sat down in this chair." Holmes looked at the chair. "Very good," said he. He turned to Soames. "Let us see the three students." We called in the three students. Holmes examined each of them closely. Then he asked Gilchrist to show his boots. They were long and narrow. "I see," said Holmes. "Have you ever done any vaulting, Gilchrist?" "Yes, sir. I was the best high jumper in college." Holmes smiled. "Then I think I can reconstruct what happened," he said. He turned to Soames. "The culprit is Gilchrist. He climbed up to the room through the window and entered from the outside. That explains the black clay from the ledge outside. He forced open the desk and examined the papers. Then, hearing Bannister outside, he fled." Gilchrist sank into a chair. "Yes," he said, "I confess, I was desperate. I needed the scholarship, but when I saw what I had done, I was horrified." Bannister then spoke. "I knew it was Gilchrist. I had served his family for years. When I saw his distress, I tried to protect him." Holmes turned to Soames. "Gilchrist will not need the scholarship," he said. "He has already written a confession and is leaving the university. Let him go in peace." Soames agreed, and thus ended the adventure of the three students.